Last week, we looked at the grassroots, his beginnings in Clarendon, and finding his calling. This week, the working world, law, intellectual property, and public service. Part 2 now of my interview with Ewan Simpson. I'm Archibald Gordon. This is Profile. Welcome to Profile. This is part 2 of my series with Ewan Simpson, who has so many titles. Last week, we talked about growing up in Clarendon. We talked about the journey to Hazard Primary as well as Glenmuir High, and the decision to go to the University of the West Indies, not to learn first, but to go and meet the university singers, because they had been the choir that welcomed Nelson Mandela when he came here to Jamaica in 1991.
Indeed.
So first, the UWI experience, you go off now, you've decided you have to live on campus and all of this.
Yes.
So you're moving back from Kingston to Clarendon, and then from Clarendon to Kingston.
Yes.
First, what is the experience like?
So it was not as surreal as I expected it to be, because as choristers at Glenmuir, we had camp every summer.
Okay. And
Irving Hall, that I went to live, was one of the spaces that we had camp in. So it felt like going back home, and interestingly it was, because I was going back to Kingston to live. So that was very interesting. But the other thing about it was that I went to University Singers rehearsal before I went to my first lecture.
Right.
So, because that is why I'm going to the university. So that was interesting, and that made certainly the start to my university life very fulfilling, because I was now singing with this amazing group of musicians that I had just seen on TV, and of course Mr. Noel Dexter was musical director, and he was just a phenomenal musical force. They were doing Rastafari music, they were doing folk songs, work songs, songs from pantomime, and all of those things. They didn't get to, and they were doing reggae, reggae reinterpretations, but they didn't get to things like gospel and dancehall until I got there. And I met O'Neill Mundell there, and so many other of my great musical friends who are my friends to this day, and we started to experiment with certain things. So gospel entered the palette of the university singers in about 94, 95.
Yes.
And so I was able to influence what was already eclectic.
But you were doing geography at the same time. So how were you balancing that? Because you were singers and you were the same person, meaning involved in everything outside. What were you doing?
So I was trying my hand at campus politics. Did very badly at it. So I tried my hand at campus politics. I was playing volleyball. Certainly for Irving. I was playing cricket and football at Irving, and then I had gone to the Philip Sherlock Center and had started to do technical theater. So I started to do lighting and stage management and all of these things at the same time. So I always had to be busy with all the different things that I found interesting.
Busy is beautiful, but it means work.
It means work, but I was never one to sit and be bored, or to sit and do one thing at a time. 24 hours in a day, you really only sleep at maximum 8 of them, which means you have 16 left. And I was also, from my grandfather's teaching, not one to be involved in pure idleness. Of course, jokes, great conversation, laughter, critical. But you could do that while you were doing so many other things.
How are you finding the balance? People go to university and don't come out.
True, and it took a while. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but it was one of those things where you had to find your way. Sometimes you had to stumble and realize what is not working, and then you had to change course. So, for example, I started off in natural sciences, and then maintaining the geography degree, I switched to a degree in arts. So I have a Bachelor of Arts in Geography and not a Bachelor of Science. And that Bachelor of Arts allowed me to be able to also do political science.
So life was starting to, what you're doing in school started to reflect your natural passion.
Indeed.
Let's talk a little bit more about the University Singers experience. You say gospel entered when you sort of joined, and you had this group of people who wanted to change things. Was that easy to do, first of all?
No, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because we first had to convince Mr. Dexter that this was something that he could entrust us with. And second of all, we had to convince those who didn't understand the philosophy of why we were doing what we were doing. Professor Nettleford used to talk about celebrating the culture of people like ourselves, and what that meant and why we needed to do it. And so that was the route. We had to take a philosophical route to get there. And you also had to get the members of the choir, especially the senior members of the choir, to appreciate that we were trying something different. So it took some convincing and it took some doing, but it happened.
When you decide that you're going to study again, why law? Because you had always said this was not the thing.
I had always said it was not for me. I don't know. I don't know why. And so I'm doing technical theater. I am doing performance theater and arts management, because now I'm president of the University Singers and we're doing all of these other things. I am at that point national adjudicator for the JCDC and doing all of these things at 22 years old or something like that. And so I am saying, okay, what next? I'm walking on campus one day and a voice says to me, go and study law. And I started to ask why. And the response was, go and study law. So I had to figure out why. And I said, aha. Clearly, there's something about the practice of law that is going to be helpful for all these other things that come naturally to me. So entertainment arts, essentially, is what it is. And that was my reasoning. So I needed to go and study law to support all of this. And that is what I did.
All right, I'm going to take the break right there, because I'm also interested in how all of the other things, the geography, as I suspect, as you said right there, the entertainment law, the entire additional degree, though you won't get credit for it at UWI, and all of that sort of informed what that master's program and your perspectives. But we have to take our second break, our first break on Profile. When we return, we'll talk about leadership, national service, and the person behind the public role. So back with you after these messages.